just watched The Amazing Digital Circus, episode 9 slash The Last Act, and I have some thoughts. Spoilers up ahead. Seriously, I'm going to spoil the entire series, the entire ending, so do avoid it if you haven't seen it. If you've heard this warning, you still want to see it, go ahead, weirdo. So, here are my initial thoughts after just watching it immediately. Some background. I just got into the Amazing Digital Circus like within the last 2 months, so I'm a LARPer basically, but I'm pretty casual. I somehow managed to avoid seeing most of the spoilers online. I saw some that were like sentences that I thought were not true and was really worried about, but I didn't have a lot to be afraid of because honestly, as a whole, I think it came together pretty well. I went in with pretty low expectations because everyone online kind of hated it, but I actually enjoyed myself. I wasn't a huge lore head or a theory head and didn't think that there was going to be a bunch of stuff going in. I wasn't like, oh my god, what's behind everything going on and this character and that? Oh, did this symbol in this episode mean that and that? Not that I'm not a lore enjoyer, but I was just pretty casual. Let's be real. I've got a Tumblr background. I'm here for the ships. And if there was yaoi, but there's only like a little bit of yaoi. So I was just here for a good time. Did I still obsessively draw? Yeah, of course I did. But going in, it's pretty chill. I had an okay time. I had a fun time, in fact. I liked it. I had, honestly, there are flaws in it, but I didn't really think about them until later on when I kind of ruminated a bit more and processed them. Honestly, after this video and the coming weeks, I'm sure I'll have more thoughts to think about it. But I've mostly been reading people's reactions online, and now I can finally understand why people were really mad about the leaks that came out. But for me personally, who doesn't have that much skin in the game, but I wouldn't say that I'm a super casual, as someone who still has like possibly undiagnosed autism, I had a good time. So after I finished watching the movie, the big question that came to me was, why did everybody hate it online? I really didn't understand it until I looked into a bit more of the issues. But I've kind of broken this video down into like a few sections. I don't even know if it's going to be that long because I just need to rant. But I don't have any friends who saw this movie. And I can't post spoilers online yet until 2 more weeks. And I'm going to forget. So here we go. So here are some really quick, little critiques before we get into the main meat of the topic. 1, pacing was a little bit weird. 2, the episode was really divided between story, thematic story, and character exploration. 3, everything needed a little bit more room to grow. 4, why did Pomni and Ragatha hug and stare at each other for so long, without making out especially? Like, it was really long that they should have just made out at that point. Yep, those are the first initial thoughts. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm not going to argue about it, but it's quite obvious that Jax is a trans femme narrative. If not trans femme, then just trans in general. Gender question mark in general. Obsession with masculinity. Their rooms are typically the characters in this story, their rooms depict a sort of their secret inner world or are things about their insecurities. Jax's room is pink and cute and fluffy. The term cracking your egg or is usually, I believe, associated with the trans community and for people who haven't come out of their shell yet, haven't fully, explored their identity or come out, publicly with it, something like that. I'm a LARPer, so I don't know. Jax is the typical, I forget his was Raggedy Andy? Is that his name? The male counterpart to Raggedy Ann. Stereotypical boy version, girl version, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to address that. It's pretty obviously that he's supposed to be a trans femme narrative in some point. Not to mention, Gooseworks has said that Jax is sort of like the worst version of themselves. All their worst instincts, all their worst impulses put into one character. Gooseworks is trans. I'm pretty sure pretty open about it. Let's talk about this. I think that the narrative they built for Jax, from episode 1 up until this point, I don't think the ending came out exactly how it should have happened. Confession, I really like Jax. If it's not obvious, I'm a big Jax fan, Purple Man, me Purple Angel, let's go. But I don't think that, I didn't hate the ending for him, but I think that it needed more room to grow, a bit more space to breathe to arrive at the conclusion that we arrived on. Every episode preceding this has been a development of Jax growing or opening up more, First few episodes, he's just a dick who's kind of a dick to everybody. Episode 5, we see him opening up a bit to one of the characters and or like reaching out to Pomni, whether to piss off Ragnar or not. And then we see him after that actually like a character and actually grow to be invested in them. You know, it shows that he actually can be more than just a dick. Not to mention, we have the big infamous crash out after the gunfight, which shows that he has an inner world and a lot going on. If you hadn't clocked it by then, Bro is crazy masking. Bro is crazy masking about who he really is because he doesn't want people to get close to him and see his vulnerabilities and for him to get hurt. But after that, you see that, he almost abstracts, but he is reached out to by the entire gang. And then he has another moment of, disappointment with the world. There's a brief moment where there's possibility that maybe he could actually leave and maybe, there is salvation. And he doesn't believe it. He rejects the possibility of it. And the worst part about it for him is that he was correct. It's horrible when you have these dark impulses that you, and disbeliefs and things that you hate and these dark suspicions and the world proves you right because then it further reinforces those beliefs that you have. But despite that, you have moments where the crew is still trying to reach out to Jax. Pomni still, gives him warm smiles and tries to invite him in. Zubul, in the penultimate episode, says, "Hey, Jax, you're still part of the gang even if I fucking hate your guts because you know what? You're one of us." And Jax, in his own way, accepts it because he doesn't leave them and isolate himself as he would normally. He joins them. And when they all have their epic, standoff against Kane, he even joins in. They're all yelling profanities at him. Poor Kane, boo-hoo. So this entire development feels like a natural progression to possibly redeeming his character, if not understanding him better. And that is all horribly blown backwards. We take 2 steps back when they discover that they are Soma mind copies. Every character takes it pretty hard. And they all take time to space away from each other and even give up. Even Ragatha, who's the group's determined optimist, determined beam of hope, she even gives up for a little bit. But slowly, as time goes on, when the rest of the crew sees that there are members, Pomni and Kinger primarily, who haven't given up, they also start to reach out again. This show reinforces again, time and time again, that what makes life worth living and what makes your experience and your world true is other people and how we influence and how our actions and lives impact those around us. So they come together to sort of realize their truth, to sort of find strength and unity in this moment of darkness. Even if perhaps their actions in this digital world cannot affect things outside, affect the real world, they can still affect each other. And that's what matters, is how your actions impact your community. So for that to happen, and for Jax to reach out to Pomni, we have never seen him do this throughout the entire series. He reached out to Pomni in episode 5, blah, 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 because he was doing it to piss off Ragatha. But we have never seen him actually reach out to someone in a moment of vulnerability. Post-Ribbit, of course. So for Pomni, who is, I would say, the group's most empathetic member, she has high EQ and often understands things and reads things into other characters that they don't know themselves. For her to see that from Jax, who's super emotionally constipated and super anti-reaching out for help or anything, for her to do nothing, to me, is very strange. Considering the Pomni we've seen up until this point. She also, she is not in a moment of despair. She's not given up on everything and everybody. So the fact that she doesn't reach out to Jax in this moment or take his hand, to me, is very odd. I've seen arguments online that Jax is a cautionary tale. That while others may try to reach out to you, you have to reach back to help, to accept that help, or to also, put in the work yourself. And I don't disagree with that idea. But I think that in this moment, where he's explicitly reaching out to Pomni, for her not to take it is really strange. People have argued. Pomni had that big fight with Jax where she tried to reach out to him, and he yelled at her. And she really, she learned that she's going to get emotionally hurt and burdened whenever she tries to reach out to him. But she hasn't backed off. After the big fight, you can see she still tries to reach out to him. When they have the plan with Abel, where they're going to escape, she asks him to join. She asks for his help, and she asks him to join them. When Kinger is revealing the entire truth and Jax freaks out and leaves, she still makes sure to show that she cares and tells him to come back later so that they can solve this together, because they're all in this together. She hasn't given up on him. So for her to give up in that moment, to me, really reads against her character that we've developed until this point. It needed if we were going to have that moment where she finally were to show that story that if you hurt people and push them way too much, they will give up on you. We needed another moment of conflict or clash for her to pull away, or a moment of like a burning of a bridge, a point of no return, where Jax is either Pomni is just fully pulled away, or Jax does something absolutely horrible that fully burns away every bridge. Because prior to that point, also, Pomni doesn't know that his actions may have influenced Ribbit's abstraction and even Kaufmo's abstraction. She doesn't know at this point. It's not until she explores his mind prison, his mind palace, and sees all of his truth laid bare, that she knows what his darkest sins are. So at that point, she should totally help him out. But so to me, it feels like a contrivance to reach the predetermined ending that we had. And you might say, okay, but we did have that like 20-minute interlude where she does go in his mind palace and, she explores everything and we come to a somewhat of a emotional, resolution. And to that I say, okay, I guess, like, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I really liked that part. I loved all the yummy Jax slop, especially because, Jax's whole thing is that he doesn't want to be vulnerable. He doesn't like showing any of his truth, any of his inner insecurities, because he's afraid that he will be rejected, that people will take that and use it against him. And like Gooseworks has said, Jax is a depiction of their worst instincts, of every single worst version of themselves. I think that in some ways that's something that we all hope, right? That if we are ever shown, if the world or people we care about are ever shown the worst version of ourselves, with every worst impulse, every worst instinct, that you could still be accepted. And Jax, who has Pomni go through his mind palace and see all of his darkest instincts, dark impulses, the way that he sees them, and also the worst things that he's ever done. After seeing all that, she meets his true self, and she still says, I choose you. I accept you, and I actively choose you. That is a dream come true. Anybody would want that to happen. So for that to happen, and then for Jax to still stay abstracted and be put in the tent, the tent jail, the open air jail, to me is a little odd. Because emotionally, there is a resolution. We see, okay, at least for the audience, I think there's a catharsis because we see how Jax is the way he is. And we see that there is, the tension there is somewhat resolved. But it's not resolved in a way that is materializes, the way that is impacted or shown in the material world. There's no change. There's no, I would say, no great objective change, meaningful change to his material state. And we don't even, honestly, we don't even know in his mental state, because all we know is Mr. Abstraction is now inside the tent. We don't see him after he goes in the tent. We don't see him in any of their fun adventures or whatever. So as far as I know, he could still be freaking the fuck out in that tent, bro. I have no idea. I would have loved, personally, and a lot of fan theories already speculate about this, but what I would like to see from pen to paper, actually in the material we saw, was a little bit of a door open to show, hey, abstracted beings can probably get better. Abstracted beings, abstraction, whatever it may be, it's obviously a metaphor for reaching some sort of dark place. I don't think it has to be sewer sliding. I don't think it has to be whatever else, but it's certainly a point of darkness, a point of no return in that way, where you've given up, or maybe you've fallen into the darkness of your heart, Kingdom Hearts. I wish that there would have been any sign explicitly that abstraction can be returned. I think I talk about this. Did I talk about this? God, I don't remember which version I talked about in this in. But I think it really would have helped also Kane's redemption. That is the other big sticking point, I think, that has some issues for people. that Kane comes back out of nowhere after his death, and he is easily accepted by the group. I personally agree a little bit with this critique. I don't dislike the decision that Kane returns and he is back in the regular cast. He does show the important thing, I think, for forgiveness, and it's not up to you. It's obviously up to the victims and how they see your sort of absolution. Whatever you must do to earn that forgiveness. But he does show that he understands a little bit of why he did what he did was wrong, why the things that he did hurt the people around him. But I think that the time frame is really hard to tell also how long Kane's been away. And it stands in stark contrast to Jax, who is also the other antagonist, I would say, of this episode, if not the last few episodes. Because Kane has trapped them in this torture nexus. Well, he hasn't done it himself. It's not really his fault. But they're in this torture nexus, and he's been torturing them for 9 episodes. He understands that at the end, but he shows them a PowerPoint about their true selves, which is super important for letting them move past. It helps them move on from their past and look toward building a new future for themselves, and also dividing themselves from these people who technically have nothing to do with them now. You know, they are their own beings. They have been shaped by their experiences in the circus to be completely different people now. And then he joins them on their adventures now, I guess. And he has the world open, and he also says that he wants to give them power to create whatever they want. Bitch, they were already creating stuff without you. I think they could have done that without you, buddy. So for Mr. Torture Master to be suddenly welcomed back to the crew, and then sad gender questioning character to be trapped in the open air jail, it just feels a little strange. I don't think their face should have been perfectly swapped, but I think that there should have been a bit more room for growth, or for a path forward for Jax, because as far as we know, he just lives there now. Ta-da! Also, I think him and Pommy should have made out. Why does everybody online hate the ending? It might seem like that if you've gone to Twitter, social media, YouTube, anywhere where people have, unfortunately or fortunately, have seen the leaks already. If you don't know, the final episode was leaked online, several weeks, or maybe a week or two before the real release. And a lot of reactions have been very negative. I have a few theories about this. One, I will call the Him Yim effect, How I Met Your Mother effect. If you've seen any video essays online about How I Met Your Mother, you'll see people talk about the fact that How I Met Your Mother had an ending that was almost universally hated for probably a few reasons. But the main reason a lot of them say is that How I Met Your Mother planned its ending from the beginning. It used the framework of, the father's children and the father telling his children about how he met their mother as the framework to tell the story. So when they filmed the pilot, or the first episode, that means that they also had to film the ending at the same time. Because these kids, they're gonna grow up. Look at the Stranger Things kids. They grew the hell up. And I think the entire story is supposed to take place over the course of 3 years or something? Maybe a little more, a little less. Those kids are freaking old now. Millie Bobby Brown had a kid. So to avoid that problem, you can film the children for your predetermined ending. You can write the final episode the way that you initially planned it to be. And this can end up being disastrous for shows that release periodically, like How I Met Your Mother, like The Amazing Digital Circus. While the structure that you may have planned for your story in the beginning, may work out at that time, you can't control how the story grows when it actually is executed. And especially can't control the way that fans react to it. Are you saying, the ending should or was influenced by fan speculation or fan interaction? Yes and no. We live in a really terrible age. The age of social media. I'm not a doomer who's saying that we should destroy all social media and all of it is terrible. But I think that there's something that the fans of this generation have, something that the previous ones never had. They have pure, unfiltered access to creators and creatives. At any moment on the internet, you are in danger of hearing a 13-year-old child's opinion about your show that is made for adults. They may not have fully developed their brain. They may have not encountered a lot of ideas that influence your work, and thus they may not be fully equipped to understand why the writing is the way it is. You know? That being said, Gooseworks and the cast for The Amazing Digital Circus, unfortunately, are very online, have interacted a lot with fans and seen a lot of their opinions. It doesn't help that Gooseworks is also the sort of auteurs that is kind of flippant and just kind of says whatever, kind of fucks with their fans just for fun. Which I think is really amusing. But because of that, a lot of people don't recognize that some of the things they said might have been bullshit and that they were just messing with them. A lot of fans may have taken the words they said for gospel and ran with it in their own head. Not to mention, something that is very interesting, and I don't really know why it happened this way, is that The Amazing Digital Circus attracted a large audience of lore heads. You may know people who are obsessed with the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. People who obsessively watch game theory. I guess not anymore, because now it's cringe, apparently. But who found, play games like Poppy's Playtime, Garten of Bam Bam, and all those things, Hello Neighbor. And they really want NatPat to do an analysis of their favorite video because they believe that a 5-second, clip with like 3 numbers in the corner means that this is an ARG and that actually the character's been dead all along. And The Amazing Digital Circus, unfortunately, has never been that kind of series. Like, yes, there are little Easter eggs and little, hints there and there about stuff coming up, but it's never meant to be like an ARG or that kind of story. From the beginning, it's been a pretty character-driven story. The plot has never really driven the characters. Because, in a lot of ways, if you describe the story of The Amazing Digital Circus, there's not a lot of plot events that happen. Episode 1, new character appears and they establish the setting. Episode 2, they do an adventure. Episode 3, they do an adventure and Kinger, you learn more about one of the characters. Episode 4, they do an episode and learn more about one of the characters. Episode 5, they do a bottle episode type thing. Well, not a bottle episode. It's like what do they call them? I've heard they're called, but you went through a bunch of different episodes. Some people think it's a filler episode, but nothing technically really happens in that. The plot development in that episode is that 2 characters start talking. That's kind of the plot development. Kind of crazy. So this show's never really been that kind of show, but it attracted that kind of audience. So you take a really potent combination of long periods between each new episode and a fandom that is obsessed with lore and theorizing and, game theorying. Put them together. Really bad combination for a show that has a predetermined ending at the beginning. From the beginning. Fans might take that to say, oh, we have a lot of hints, then they're doing a lot of stuff that they're building up to for this secret lore or whatever. And that's not it. It's just that they had an idea of what it was going to be from the beginning. So these are kind of the perils of having a predetermined ending and a super online fandom. I also personally think that the way that the story happened when it went pen to paper from Gooseworks' conception for the ending versus what happened, it really changed. Because not only are they the writer, but there's a whole team of creatives that also influences and does the work. I think that without the performances of the amazing voice actors for the show, it wouldn't have gone in this direction. The character decisions and the building and the way that they portrayed them offered a lot more insight and created a different path, I think, than what the creator initially might have envisioned for the ending. And I think that that's part of it. It was a living body of work that was influenced by every single hand in the kitchen, So those expectations sort of led to the catastrophe of the way that people are reacting online. It's both great and terrible to have a big fan base for your work. You have so many voices that can listen to the things that you're doing and you can showcase your story. But on the other hand, everyone wants to claim a part of the work for themselves because they feel an ownership and attachment to something that they really relate to and empathize and see themselves in. It's great and terrible. And I think that it would have been great if they evolved a bit more. If they could have taken a step back from this work, even though it's very deeply personal, and see how it could have come together as a whole. We've seen this problem again and again. We've seen it happen with How I Met Your Mother. We've seen it happen with Game of Thrones. And we've seen the opposite happen as well. I think that on the flip side, this is not related at all to this now, I'm just talking, but the flip side of this is Stranger Things. They had a plan for one season, and they never had a plan for the very end. And they just kind of made up to the days that they were filming. Not to mention, their relationship with the creatives working on the project did influence and change their writing a lot. Often we've heard about how Steve in season 1 was meant to die, but because the actor was so likable, they just kept him in. They almost did that again for freaking Billy in season 3, I believe. And because of that, I think they just liked the characters too much. The cast ballooned to an insane amount, and they couldn't make any, stakes, even though this is an apocalyptic story. And it ended up making the story feel kind of flat by the end. Not to mention they were juggling so many character storylines. That is one of the advantages I always loved about Amazing Digital Circus, how small and tight the cast is. And even then, it was really hard to focus on all the characters and really give them the room to develop by 9 episodes. Also, the leaks didn't help. Can we talk about that? The leaks didn't help. Having the leaks just show up online before, having parts of your story released online out of context, out of the right environment, is not going to help your story. That is not the way that's meant to be presented. Never trust a spoiler out of context, okay? It's just not great. It's not great for the work, for the way that the artistic vision was for it to be presented. But that's my quick thoughts on why everyone online was so angry. Here are just some miscellaneous final thoughts that I don't know where to put out else. But one thing I really liked was Cain as an obvious metaphor for a god, or God with a capital G as a creator. Because there is this sort of question, right? If the creator of all life on Earth or the universe or such, you have to read Paradise Lost for this. But there is a belief that, capital G God created the difference between, humans and angels and other creatures is that humans have free will. They are able to choose their decisions. And in the end, hopefully the idea is that humans will choose to worship God and honor him and, whatever else, despite everything that happens to their life and despite all of their suffering and all of their sins. And that's the difference between humans and angels. They have the free will to choose. And that's what makes them so interesting. And you can see this argument kind of reflected in Cain. He is the god. Well, he says explicitly he's the god, but he's the god of this world, and he can create NPCs or whatever to do whatever he says. But what he values about humans is their free will. And in this world, I don't know what is a one-to-one for, but creativity is somewhat, I think, akin to divinity. The divine spark in people, in this show, is their creativity and their ability to think of new ideas and unique ideas and things that his NPCs can't. He could program them to worship him forever, but they don't share that divine spark that Cain has to create. And that is why he explicitly says that he enjoys them. And that's so cool. I just think that's pretty cool. The other part is that I really think the finale did a good job of emphasizing the theme that I think that the story and the theme that Gooseworks has been trying to tell this whole time. Nobody knows where they go after they die. Nobody knows the true nature of reality. We could be heads in jars. We could be, you could be the only person who exists in this entire world, and everything in your perception is what's real, and everything outside of it's not real. Or there could be a big dude in the sky watching, and there could be, flames and bad times down below. But no one will know in the end. What you know in this reality is how your actions and the things you do impact those around you. A lot of things may not be real, but the way that you treat people and the way that people treat you is real. The way that you can either be kind, you can either be nice to people, make their lives much better, give them an enjoyable time, create beautiful memories together, or you could be a huge dick, have them hate you, have them have a terrible time. Heaven or hell is, in some ways, a matter of perspective. If you are kind to other people and let them exercise their free will, let them be themselves and be free and open and have their own desires and their own wants and let them express them, then this can be heaven. But if you torture those around you and make them and be a huge asshole and make them have a bad time, then this is hell. You made the big torture nexus hell. But maybe if you're actually kind and care about those around you and are careful about your actions, the torture nexus can be heaven. You know? I think that's just neat.